Hey, this is Nina.
And this is John.
Welcome to Activists. Was the real challenge.
Just to sit down and record this thing
is
ridiculous.
Yeah. So I actually pulled up Facebook because one of our first posts on Facebook, I think, really describes activists well. So, but all I have in front of me is Audition right now, so I can't really go over it.
I mean, you do have a wireless mouse somewhere around you.
But you're producing right now, so yeah, it's that one. It's that post right there, October 10th.
October 10th. What is Activist? We seek to share with and assist communities in need via community outreach projects, media, education. Our social community can actively support and influence our community activism and service. We look forward to coming together as a community and working to solve some of the challenges we face as a global community. You can join us and join in the conversation. Of course it starts raining. Of course it starts raining while I'm recording. Of course.
Well, that's fine. We knew we were going to get a storm today.
Yeah, it's supposed to be snow all day. Winter advisory warnings. Hello. Welcome to the White Death. Right? This is Chicago. We freeze people and kill people with icicles periodically.
Yeah.
So
I think that post stands out the most to me because I feel it's important for us to have an open platform. Where the platform isn't leaning too far in one direction or another, and more open to the woes everywhere. You know, there's so many issues to tackle that just, you know, if you focused in on just one, you could spend your lifetime on just that one.
Yeah.
Right? But then, of course, if you are affected by multiple challenges in communities, then you look at that one and you're like, yeah, but, you know, I could be tackling this problem and this problem and this problem. So, you know, open community platform, I think, is needed out there.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start Activists. Education, critical thinking, you know.
I mean, a lot of nonprofits and a lot of community-based organizations kind of get, in my opinion, railroaded into one specific thing. And there's a lot to be done in each specific topic, right?
Yeah. But
a lot of different times, you have a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, any kind of nonprofit or any kind of activism needs to be highly flexible from its financial situation to what it actually puts boots on the ground for. So, I mean, in this way, this is kind of what Activist was designed for, is to address multiple different problems as they arise, sort of like a popcorn, more of like the fire department, right?
Right, amongst its members, right? Amongst its community. So the community has a say in, okay, this needs to be done, and can collectively come to, how do we tackle this? Do we start a petition?
Do we raise money? Do we come up with a solution in order for it to be invested in by the city, right? Like, for instance, like Los Angeles, right? You could take, if Activist was a spread out model, you could have them in you could have an Activist chapter in every area. Right. Right? And you could effectively deal with the homelessness in this fashion, because each community has a different amount of them. They all cause different problems. There's different worries. Right? So you would allow the minds that are living in that community to flex and solve it, right? Everybody talks about solving the problem, and then they just pass it up the chain, right? And or they take the exact opposite route, and they just want the problem to go away. Like, these are human beings, right? In LA, these are human beings. So there's a drive and motive for why they're doing what they're doing in the position that they're in, right? Yeah. Not saying that no one wants to be homeless, right? Or somebody wants to be homeless. No one wants to be homeless. There's usually some kind of factor that's not being addressed here, either because they either don't have the faculties to, right? Both mental or financial. Like, I mean, come on now. $5,000 for a fucking apartment.
It's out of control. And the fact that you mentioned LA, there was a story that came out of LA last week about conversion of apartments for low-income housing. However, the units are going to cost the city over $100,000 per unit. First of all, you're raping the city of funds. Second of all, you could buy one of those little tiny houses from who is it selling that? Amazon? I could be
hundreds
wrong,
of sellers,
but they're like anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. Which, of course, there were advocates out that were literally going down the streets of LA trying to destroy or take down these little homes because they felt like the value of their homes were being brought under because these little homes were across from them.
They're popping up because it's considered, because right now it's considered a stopgap, right? So it's those tiny houses being just popped up are the same as tents essentially, and being treated as the same as tents, right? Mm-hmm. So they're being looked at and ostracized in that fashion. Yeah, no one wants to walk outside and see a dude or a chick or child or whatever, right? Yeah. Peeing on a fence across the street from their house, right? But let me put this into perspective for you. It doesn't bring your home value down. That specific act does not. It's the perception around it. So if we actually did something like bought 10 or 12 tiny houses and put them along a street, right? Now you don't have tents. Right. Now you actually make it look like it's purposeful, right? Right. Which would actually be a selling point in your community, right? That this is extremely community friendly. It would also be wise for the city to give them addresses.
Exactly. I was just thinking that, because even if it was a community box, right? And say, okay, now you have access to a mailing address. This helps you get a job. This helps you get resources that you need to move on to the next step in life. It's really hard to do something, to get a job without a physical address, let alone prepare yourself for that job with a proper shower and have all the resources needed in your resume and a good-looking Facebook page for them to go stalk before they employ you.
That's not a fucking problem at this point in time in the world.
But you know what I mean? I feel like those problems could be looked at from a completely different perspective instead of looking at homelessness as a disease or a plague or those people, looking at it like, wow, this person had to set up a tent right across from my house. You know what? I think I'm going to contact the city and find out what's really going on here, because there are thousands of reasons why someone could be sleeping on the streets of LA, Chicago, New York, PA, anywhere.
For something as simple as I got lost, I got tired, and I went to sleep, to I lost my job, I lost my wife. Yeah. Right. I lost my house. I lost everything.
One wrong move, and it's a trickle down effect in your life, and you're always like one step away. You're one step away from it.
Well, to quote Warren Buffett, if you have one source of income, you are one step away. Yeah, you're one
step away.
Yeah, you're one step away, which is kind of where the population is being kept. Work a job, don't have time for anything else, don't educate yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Watch whatever news faculty, right? But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, there's flexible solutions to problems, right? Right. And activists should be standing for that kind of mental flexibility in order to troubleshoot problems on a local level. Because at this point, you can basically agree that throughout all of 2020, right, the government was ineffective, and it proved itself to be ineffective. Like,
yes,
if there ever was a shanty town, with some kind of Urinetown politics, right, it would be the USA. We are a third world country wearing a Gucci belt. Yes, that is exactly what the fuck we are. Yes, like we talk about how socialism is bad, right? But we give trillions of dollars to banks, businesses, and all that for the sake of keeping the economy going. Do you know what drives the economy? People. They drive the economy.
I really wasn't surprised when they gave money to the airlines, when it was even considered to give money to the banks. I was not surprised at all. I'm really more surprised at the fact that, they could actually take the term of of childbirth to come to the decision of giving individuals $600. I don't even think, does that break down to 10? What does that break down to in those 9 months? I'm not going to do the math here, but and expecting people to have some great recovery to where that money would trickle back into the economy somehow to keep the economy great, you know, or the conversation of the economy, worrying so much about the economy. What about the common people that make up your economy? The common people that make up your military, the common people that keep this motor running, that continue to put money in the coffers of our government.
Yeah, because let's be clear here. Like, if nobody worked, if all 328 million people in the United States stopped going to work. Actually, hold on. Let me rephrase that. So there is 600 millionaires in the United States currently, or some shit like that, right? So we're going to take 600 out of that. So we'll say 327.
I told you I didn't want to do math
right. 327.9 million people. Right. We're going to take another. I'm going to go ahead and be generous here. We're going to take 2 million out of that, and we're going to say that's children underneath the working age. I'm being generous here.
We can't get these facts right. So when we actually do a custom discuss on it, we're accurate here.
Yeah.
But yeah. For the first podcast, all right, we're going to freelance this one.
So we're going to say 325. If 325 million people just stopped working, right? The whole economy would crash. Like there would be riots in the streets, right? The government would not know what the fuck to do, and they would have no choice but to cave into demand. In all reality, it would only take 10% of our economy to stop doing whatever the fuck it's doing, and it would derail everything, and that is the cost of efficiency. But on the flip side of all that, it also creates an entirely new opportunity for foreign investors, because foreign investors come in and buy up everything as it crashes, right? Or they catch it almost at the bottom, so they might take a 5% hit on it, but they know that's as far as it's going to go.
Well, I do know that they've tried to prevent China from doing that. That was a part of the bill back in March, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll have to refresh on that. So many things have happened in 2020 that...
Listen, we find in 13 sarcophaguses in a necropolis. Australia caught fire.
Right.
California was still on fire. Ugh. Murder hornets, right? Riots, right? A pandemic. Not just one, but like 4 different variants of the same virus was like, hey, y'all, we the shock troopers this time. Boom. Right? Everybody's getting sick. Death tolls are still sitting at somewhere like 3,000 per day on average.
Cults and factions.
The rise of Trumpism, right? There's this huge devastating effect that 2020 has had on everybody's life. I don't care if you're a millionaire. I don't care if you're, making $10,000. It's just had an extraordinarily devastating effect on everybody. So, I mean, what else is there to say about 2020 without having to go through like a long ass time? The only thing that we didn't have is Godzilla.
Didn't we come close?
No, we haven't had a Godzilla. We just started joking about. Yeah, we were just joking about Godzilla.
Yeah, and my nerves were so bad that I was just like,
fuck all that.
But 2020 has definitely been a roller coaster. I've never wanted to see 11:59 p.m.
So bad in my life.
So bad in my life, yeah.
Like, 2020 got so hectic, it fucked up our sleep schedule.
Horribly. But, back to that $600. I just wanted to say this also because, like I said to you the other day when we were in the car, I think it was the day that the money started posting, right? That we saw the guy that got in an accident. And, we're just thinking, like, how does this trickle back into the economy the way that they want it to? And it just really isn't. Once you get in a car wreck like that, you're looking at, anywhere from $6,000 to $2,000 just to fix your car.
Shit, fuck that. You're looking at $6,000 to $5,000
so
at the bare minimum.
If he was behind on his rent, with the national average being around $6,000 or $7,000, then you're looking at, do I fix my car or do I give my landlord this $600? Which, let's not forget, there's supposed to be a package included in this bill that got signed for rental relief that's geared towards the landlords. So
up to the $25 billion.
Right, but I'm hoping that, you know, people take advantage of this, because even though, you know, everyone's like, oh, the landlords, they're tripping and this and that, but
what did they say that the percentage was on Americans behind their rent? 10%
or something like that. But, you know, like I said, this isn't an official cuts and discuss, so I can't remember.
Well, I just want to.
But that's around 32 million.
Times 10%. Yeah, 32.7 million, right? So if we said.
No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong, because the report was like 80 million or something. No, not 80 million, but 80%.
I want to say it's more like 60. We're going to take 30. Hold on. Fuck that. We're just going to take 32.
And this is what we get for free.
We're going to take 32,700,000, right? And we're going to say the average rent. We're going to say the average rent is $1,000. Mm-hmm. I mean, bullshit, but it's $1,000. Right? That's already at $32 billion. Mm-hmm. $32.7 billion. So at the same time, at $25 billion,
it's not going to save everybody.
It's not going to save everybody, and that's, I mean, anything in New York, right? You could spend $32 billion just in New York, Let's be clear here. Anybody that was making over $200K in 2019 mm-hmm. was probably straight. Let's be clear here. Oh, pandemic happened. Let me go buy a deep freezer. Let me go over to Costco.
Yeah, you were like one of the first ones to be able to do that. Yeah. Because when they went to lockdown, it was like our turn to go grocery shopping. So we were in there shopping for our household size the way we normally would, which was stock up time, right? Mm-hmm. And we couldn't find
not a goddamn
anything.
Thing.
There's like this poor little sad picture of you trying to look for toilet paper, and there's no toilet paper at all
it was all gone.
And all I remember is just thinking in the back of my mind, but it was our turn to stock up.
There was no toilet paper. There was no dish soap. There was no bleach. There was no paper towels.
But if you had it, if you had the money, if you had that insider info, if you knew these things, right, and
if you had the flexibility
that
to
flexibility,
act,
it was nothing.
If you had the flexibility to act at that exact moment, it was nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were even people bragging about how much toilet paper they actually bought. One dude broke it down that he could take shit 4 times a day for like 80 years. Using like 5 or 6 sheets of toilet paper, like 5 or 6 like double ply toilet paper sheets, right? He could take his shit for 80 years 4 times a day in a household of 5.
I mean, we went so crazy on toilet paper that other places around the world were looking at us, looking at their rolls of toilet paper, looking back at us and going, so is there gold in there or something? Like, what's happening here? You know?
Like, I could understand if someone said, oh, pandemic, and the coffee aisles were empty. I could understand that.
You know, that's what I wanted. I was like, I don't want to run into the issue of not having coffee.
Oh, no, I'd be one pissed off person.
Oh, man. But yeah.
The fact of the matter is that 2020 sucked.
Yeah.
It just sucked. We had 13... the 13 sarcophagi that got unearthed in Egypt, right? And everybody was like, "Don't fucking open those.
Don't you
Don't you fucking do it."
Did we learn anything from opening up King Tut? Like anything?
Anything, right? Anything?
No. We
what
didn't
about
learn
all
anything.
of the? What about all of the Egyptian movies that have come out that have been like sarcophagi, King's Curse, the whole bit? Don't do it.
No.
Right? No. World destruction happens when you start opening up random ancient relics. Right?
I had so much faith with the pandemic there in the beginning because, 1918, I was like, okay, we made a lot of mistakes during this time frame and we had less resources, less things available. And then even if, you hop to the Great Depression, you're like, yeah, we made a lot of mistakes here. There is no way the government's going to fail us in 2020. Boy, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm so glad that, at least for us, I could say we kept 10 steps ahead.
From 2016 to 2020, or to the end of 2019, what exactly told you that we were going to be able to rely on our government?
Okay, I'm going to say this. You know, when you have a specific skill set, right? You typically stay within that skill set unless you're willing to learn a new one, right? And so you take the time to learn that new one before you get your feet wet and you get out there, you know. So in times of crisis, right, you don't particularly at that point go, okay, I know science better than you do. Although my particular field is way over here, right? So there was a thought in the back of my mind that there's a certain level of intellect here, certain level of intellect that says, okay, I have to take a back seat and now let the scientists come forward. Like, Merkel, this is out of my hands. I'm going to let science dictate what happens next. If science says, you know, we have to stay 2 meters apart, then that's what's going to happen. So I had I had a mustard seed, John. Don't look at me in that tone of, I had a mustard seed of hope. But I'm also very realistic.
You already saw what the hell we were dealing with from 2016 all the way till now. Mm-hmm. And what told you that this was going to get any better?
I had hope, but also at the beginning of this, you know, I was pretty diligent. I was on it, you know. I called a lot of things ahead of their time, but I mean, you have to have some inkling, a little tinge of hope, you know. And as this went on, you know, even in debates on social media posts, and you know, and I've shared those with you, where you could literally see some of us just like, I'm out of hope. I'm out of any get up and go for any of this, you know, because the things that are happening, the unrest, the things falling out of people's mouths, we can't have a decent conversation, you know. And I think there's a lot of us that are just looking to have real open conversations without a bunch of bashing each other, because we're trying to solve problems, or we want to come together and solve an issue and figure out the best way forward to solve that issue. So I think all of that just got really tiring. The longer we went through this pandemic and this 2020 in general, the more weary we're just weary and tired. And then December to today felt like a whole year, in my opinion. Like, every month got longer and longer and longer. You know, it was like July was like 6 months. You know, August, you know, another 6 months. So
I mean, it didn't help that we were up
I'm just grateful to get to here.
It really didn't help that we were getting up at like 5 a.m. and going to bed at like 11, 12 p.m. Or not 12 p.m. Getting up at 5 a.m. and going to bed at 11 p.m., 12 a.m., right?
See? So we're doing this first podcast, and then we're going to take the next 48 hours to get some sleep. And then maybe we can organize for 2021 and not be so discombobulated from everything we lived through. I think this is like, you know, PTSD or... I don't know, PTSD from a year.
In all honesty,
traumatic events.
In all honesty, the amount of stress that got put on the American population and the entire world has probably spawned something in the realm of like at least 2 to 3 million cases worth of PTSD in one shape, format, or another. Yeah. Like, let's be clear here. Like, once the dispensaries opened up, they were sold out. Right? They were sold out for weeks.
Oh yeah.
Right? I don't even smoke weed. Right? I was just keeping up with the damn stocks and the market trend. And it was just like lines, like 10, 20, 30 minutes long just to get inside the store. Not to buy nothing, to get inside the store. 10, 20 minute wait in a line of people. Which means they were like factory working. Like, okay, you walk in, hey, welcome, what do you want? Oh, you want this? Cool, you're gonna go two people down, right? They'll get that for you. Okay, cool. Hey, what do you want? Right? Oh, you want some equipment. Okay, what kind of equipment? We got all this back here. You got 5 minutes. You got 20 seconds. Right? No, they were sold out. Like, the amount of of drug addicts that's going to come out of the pandemic is going to be astronomical. Mm-hmm. The amount of people who don't want to deal with reality, or have some form of body dysmorphia, or have some form of mental illness, period, comes out of this pandemic, and it's going to be a lot larger number than what we went into it, even though that, we really haven't done.
Which is also why I feel like the government needs to do more funding towards our hospitals and towards mental health. And recovery. It's a whole nother piece for us, I know.
That's socialism, though. Taking care of the population at this point is equatable to socialism.
We have lived through 2020, and we have lived through a crisis state. I think that for extreme cases is cause for extreme measures, and they need to really take a good look at it, because if our mental health is not where it needs to be, then how do we maintain being a superpower? Our crime rates are growing up. People are leaving this country.
But the Democrats and the liberals,
that's
why the crime rate goes up, because the Democrats and the liberals are driving up the crimes, because all they want to do is just rape white women and blah. No. Listen. If you are on the fence post that
we've been through too much division.
Yeah, if you are on the fence post, you think socialism and having healthcare for everybody, or passing out stimulus to the bottom rung so that it goes up instead of down, which going down makes no sense, considering that 50% of our wealth is held by something like 600 people. 50% of the wealth.
And the tax reforms have been built to cripple those that are lower or mid-income going forward into, 2026?
2027.
2027.
The lower half of society, or the lower 2/3 of society, is going to end up paying for 1/3 of the population's yacht money.
Mm-hmm. And yet we look down on that same population when it comes to needing assistance of any kind.
Oh, you could work a job for $15 an hour and afford this 3,000 bedroom apartment and a car and all this other stuff. No, it's not how this works.
Yeah.
This is a fantasy.
But looking back on 2020, I think America's first reckoning was empathy. I think as Americans, we definitely need to take a look in the mirror in regards to our empathy towards each other. Mm-hmm. We got a chance to look at how we affected our environments. The CO2 levels have been the lowest they've been in ages. There's a lot that has come out of this. Systemic racism brought to the fore like never before. Mm-hmm. It's just in your face. We were ramping up to this, with social media. 2014, 2015, 2016, it could no longer be, that doesn't exist. No, it's now in your face. So we have that to look at. Our relationship with the police, how much funding is enough, how much funding is too much, how much control, the powers that be have. Freedom of speech. 2020 has put so many things on the plate that it's kind of hard to just sit back and be like, save the puppies, save the water. It's like, no, we have a lot of work to do.
A lot.
There's a lot to address. And I guess in closing, just to say that, building our community can take part in so many different things, especially if we set up the platforms to where, our members are also contributors, and so therefore they can, take these ideas and enact change in their areas, right? Because, change is almost like, faith. It's that mustard seed. Mm-hmm. It's not something that we should continue to expect to happen from the top down, It's something that it's going to happen.
Get away from, as long as our government at all levels is the same as what it was, we're going to have to rely on
each other.
Yeah, on grounded efforts to literally bootstrap any change. And literally have to fight like a dog in order to keep it the way that we change it. Because if you pull back just a little bit, of course Big Brother will step in, right? If they don't like what you're doing, even though it may be having a positive effect on the community, right? If they do step in and they ruin it, right? Then all that work, you could spend 5, 10, 15, 20 years on a project, but the minute you have the wrong kind of support, all of that goes away.
Yeah.
So, I guess...
I guess 2020 leaves us with understanding that, these issues can no longer be a trendy hashtag that just live in the moment of popularity and fizzle off. These are real problems that affect real lives that actually do have a trickle up effect in regards to, how our nation functions, government, local governments, for example. Like I said, 2020 has brought tons of things to light, including voter suppression, how the vote works. I was really surprised to see how many people were uneducated about the process, how they don't understand that, some of these politicians don't just pop up out of thin air. They were elected locally. They're an alderman. They were an alderman or, city council member or whatever, so they move up through the ranks. So they already have support by the time they're running for, Senate or House of Representatives or AKA president. They've already built up this support. Or the judges, for example.
Where you basically have no idea who the hell any of these judges are. Yeah. Right? But you have to go and literally dig them up. Like, voting by mail allowed me to look at a lot of people locally. And I was just like, how the hell are you still elected?
Yeah. Right? Like, you're not even, some of the judges on our ballot weren't even recommended. Yeah. To be seated as judges. But when you think about the normal election process, you have to go and then you're like, I don't know who these people are, so I'm just going to vote, Republican or Democrat, down the way and hope for the best. There's no way for you to keep up with. Right. I don't even know how many names were on that ballot.
I want to say there was at least like 20.
Yeah.
At least 20. Because we spent an entire morning just going through and, looking at their records and then making whatever decision we made.
Yeah, right? So 2020 was about exposing, people in power. In reflection, 2020 has given us a lot, and stepping into 2021, we're going to take it a day at a time, and, we're going to talk about what's closest to our hearts, right? And hopefully we can make 2021 and 2022 and 2023
between 2021 and 2025, I'm really hoping that we can get some decent change out here to where we can start pulling
years of change, real change, real solutions that could last and for the next generation and generation behind us. But I think, the biggest takeaway is, these problems, they're not just hashtags. Breonna Taylor was not just a hashtag or a march. She was a human being,
She got murdered. We talk about Breonna Taylor's entire podcast just in of itself. Yeah. But, I mean, where's your thin blue line? Where's your thin blue line when it comes to Breonna Taylor? Is she absolved from that because that whole, thin blue line protection because one of her ex-boyfriends or one of her boyfriends happened to be a drug dealer? Let me be clear here. How many times did we see in the past decade about killer cop gone wild, right? And just murder his family, right? Where's your fucking thin blue line when it fucking comes to that? Yeah. Let me be clear.
So we're going to wrap this up. We have to wrap this up.
Yeah, we gotta eat.
This podcast will be 10 hours long. We gotta go eat and, enjoy the rest of New Year's. And we hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and we will talk to you soon.